Sahana Vavatu Sahanao Bhunaktu Sahaviryankaravavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma Shavahe. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So this verse 37, topic of it is Jiva and Jagat, the world and the Jiva. They are without a beginning, because this is how the setup is. There was always a Jiva in this world, and there was always a world for the Jiva to work out their stuff. And this is because, as we said, Maya Shakti has Avarana Shakti, and this Avarana, it does create a Jiva who remains or has a capacity to remain ignorant forever. Forever. Until the Jiva takes initiative and decides to pursue the knowledge. Now that is up to the Jiva. That no one can force the Jiva. You can't tell to your loved ones, hey, I've discovered something fantastic, I think you should take a look at it. Because again, see, if they take a look at it through you, they will have a very different response if they take a look at it through someone else, because of that association. So it's not so simple. A teacher could be confronting, like looking at you, and the person is not going to see them. Right? That's why it's not so easy. Even though the teaching is there, the teacher is there, the perceiver simply doesn't see them, and therefore they missed a whole lifetime of opportunity that could have been, with some sincerity, could have been at least pursued. So it's not such a simple process. And you know what it feels like to have people who you care about, and they're not quite into this, right? And you know you have access to this knowledge, and yet there they are, so close to you every day, but there's no click. The click is not there. This is because every jiva comes with their own stuff, their own prarabdha karma. And so one cannot expect them to know exactly what you know or take the same interest as you know. It's a very different jiva. When you give birth to children, you bring two entirely different people. Two people that could be sitting next to you in a train station, right, in one life. You bring them next life into your house. You don't know. I'm not saying it's like that, but you don't know. So the jiva has fancies, has desires, has inclinations, and has free will, and all of that will make up your life experience. And with that, you will attract certain people and you will reject others. And there's nothing that we can do about it, because you have inclinations, and that's how you move about the world. So it kind of begs a question. So this means that if I have inclinations incompatible for knowledge, does this mean do I ever find this knowledge? Well, the answer is, if you don't have the inclination for knowledge, how can you find the knowledge, even though the knowledge is there? So you can see why it takes lifetimes, because everything is already provided. The reality of the ocean and the water is already provided. And yet the wave is swimming in this very reality all the time, and it's just oblivious to it. Therefore, you can see how much we need Ishwara's grace besides just your self-efforts. How do you earn Ishwara's grace? So you follow the laws of the order, because it is Ishwara's setup, and therefore I have no choice but to follow. It's not like I'm doing it for some God. It's because it's for my own free will. It's for my own goodness. It's for my own well-being. That is why I'm following the laws. Not for someone else. It's done for you alone. Because if there's a violation of that law, then that's going to be impact you in a way that is not pleasant. Okay. So this setup continues until I understand the nature of reality. So this whole setup continues for I until I understand the nature of reality, because you're constantly being mixed into that which continues, goes from body to body to body. So when the person who doesn't know this knowledge, when I die, where is my I? In the I sense. Now the subtle body doesn't die, it's only the physical body that dies. So that's why if you look at near-death experiences, they will tell you, right? You will see reports. I read so many reports on this, and they will later on say, there was awareness of my body lying on the ground. I could hear the doctors speaking, and I could, even report later on what they said. And so people often say to me, well, NDE is not complete death, but it's actually misleading, this word near. It's actually complete death. The reason why they say near death is because you came to a point where you were permanently dead. But, right, they were able to revive you through CPR. So in the 1960s, I believe, when we started to have this CPR, and we had a whole new, account of these reports, that what happens after death, and the fact that I was completely conscious, if not more than right now. The reason is because the physical body pulls you down. It's very heavy. And when the I sense releases itself from the physical body, then the I sense feels a lot lighter. That's why they say I felt so much lighter, freer. There was no pain. It was awesome. There was so much more reality to my existence than here in this world. So when they came back, then usually they will say, well, I didn't want to really come back because it was so pleasant. So look at this. You have a whole lifetime of experiences and attachments. And you say, no, I can't leave my kids. I can't leave my business. I don't want to leave anything because it needs me. 1 minute later, no, I don't want to. I want to go there. I want to stay there. That quick, we're able to let things go. So it shows us, and yet we have a lifetime of attachment to our kids and to our family. 1 minute later, I don't want to go back, even though you had a perfect life. So you can see how realities play within realities. Therefore, because the I is placed in the I sense, when the body dies, I continue. But I, as the thought, continue. And this I continues and gains another body based on its karma jam, based on its past causes. And therefore, it's like waking up in the morning, except you wake up carrying a different body with amnesia. Because if you didn't get amnesia, then you couldn't move on. You would have too much hurt to remember from past lives. Therefore, you get a fresh chance every single life like this. And it's mind-boggling to understand or to see how this was able to go on for lifetimes. How can a person play with permutations and combinations of 5 elements for lifetimes after lifetimes after lifetimes? In other words, that's how addictive this samsara is. There's always something new to explore. And so the individual says, finally, I don't want all of this pain and pleasure. I want the limitless God itself. I want God. So that's the difference between what we call an artha and artharthin. See, we all start with 4 stages in life. And artha, and then artharthin, we have Jijnasu, and we have Jnani. So these 4 stages is how we all start. How? By only thinking of God when you're in times of pain. You know those times when a business collapses or something goes wrong, or I'm in the position of being fired or whatever, and you start immediately thinking about, oh Lord, please help, 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 help. So this means this is a very first stage how we start. And then when you eventually, get your life in order, then you start to have a constant relationship with the Lord. You start to have prayers, you start to have communion with the Lord, and you start to ask Lord for things. I need to have health. I need to have a good kids. I need to have a good mind. I need to have a healthy brain. Please give me a healthy immunity. Take away this pain. So whatever comes up in life, the person is now, first thing what happens, they think of the Lord. But initially, they only thought of the Lord when there was some pain in life. So now they're thinking about the Lord in all of their transactions. And eventually they say, who is this Lord that I'm praying to? I've been asking Lord for help, but who is the Lord? Right? What is his nature? Or is it a he or a she? Where is he or she? And so the question, the nature of the questions change from asking to, from asking for, for things into asking for the very giver of those things. And so the whole relationship now changes. That means I want to know what is this Lord and what is his nature. And eventually you come to a point where you come to the teaching and you take your time, you're sincere in your inquiry, you understand that despite the busyness in our life, we need to have some time off for yourself, and that is your time of reflection and inquiry. And slowly, slowly you come to remove your old notions and build a model of reality that is keeping with what is. Now the next verse wants to show us, if you don't understand that the jiva and the jagat, the world, and the sentient being, if you don't know them as mithya, then what's going to happen? We take them as absolute reality. Now, they have a different model. Very interesting how they're going to communicate this. Verse 40. Pratibhasika-jiva yaha tat jagat pratibhasikam vastavam manyate anyaha tu mithya iti vyavaharika. See, first of all, what is pratibhasika? It's not just a dream state, it's also subjectivity. Waking state opinions, waking state subjectivities, waking state biases and prejudices, right? My opinions about the world. When we say it's your opinion, right? That's your opinion, right? For example, if I'm objective, I say the weather is hot. But if I'm being subjective, what do I say? Oh, the weather is hot and, I cannot function, and all of these complaints start to come. These are all opinions that belong to me, because not everyone is going to say the same thing. So when it says pratibhasika, we're now targeting specifically what is that part of you that keeps on adding its own stuff on top of the world, right? So see, this I sense is what we call a vyavaharika design, right? It's the world. It's made by Ishvara, right? Did you make your I sense? Did you people are probably going to say yes. Let me put it this way. Did you create the capacity for everything to flow into one individual and not make any mistake that it's your stuff versus someone else's stuff? No, you just get born and this is my stuff. That means the I sense is created by what we call vyavaharika. It is vyavaharika design. In other words, Ishvara Srishti. Clear? So this I sense, no? Okay. So this I sense, on top of it being given to you, what happens? We add notions onto it. So the thing becomes sort of convoluted, right? We have so many opinions about who we are. And so we walk with these opinions. And then we do what? Claim them as mine. And not only that, but other people's pratibhasika becomes your vyavaharika. Think about this. Other people's personal stuff, personal choices, personal distortions, you witness that. It becomes your world. It becomes part of this vyavaharika world. Okay? So not only do you have to now look at your own pratibhasika, but also your own pratibhasika is influenced by other people's pratibhasika. And then you have to kind of weed that out. What is mine and what is keeping with the reality? And I said, now, how do you pull out? How do you recognize your pratibhasika? Whenever we feel something about someone, the first thing is acknowledge, this is happening to me right now. Because what we tend to do is, nope, I'm too busy to acknowledge this situation. This has not happened to me. We just kind of push it under the carpet. No, I acknowledge it. I honor it. It is happening to me. This is happening to me. First step. And then we be with that pain. Being with that pain. That's called maturity. Being with the pain of, of experiencing the pain of being. Because that is pratibhasika. Pain only comes when pratibhasika comes. There's no pain in the vyavaharika world. Vyavaharika is God's world. God doesn't like shoot pain to people. We create own pain by distortions relative to the Vyavaharika. We use Vyavaharika as a substratum, and I shoot my own ideas, and it causes me hurt. And then I what? Complain the world is causing me hurt. And then we ask, how much of this is my stuff and how much is keeping with reality? Now let me start an inquiry in reference to that. The second thing is that I haven't mentioned previously is suppose that you fall for your own pratibhasika, because Vikas has asked me, what happens when someone's pratibhasika is targeting you? What about when you fall for your own pratibhasika and you realize you completely went off the mark? I'll give you an example. When AI started to come out last year, a lot of people were writing books and generating images through Midjourney. That's an AI image generation platform, and creating books, right, through ChatGPT. And I kind of already, because I'm an early adopter, so I get to know exactly what's going on when it starts. And someone sent me a book, and they wanted for me to look at that book. It was called The Self, right, for kids. So they wanted to bring out this knowledge for kids. And instantly I recognized these are Midjourney images, instantly, because I was already prepared to have one step ahead to be informed if someone tries to cheat me, right, through their sort of, hey, look, I've made a book. So Midjourney 100% confirmed. But then I made a mistake. I assumed that the text was also generated, right? And so I sent to him the feedback, or it was a him, and I said, sorry, I don't believe in AI-generated text and images. And this fella was not happy, I tell you. He says, yes, the images were generated, but the text is mine. And I was like, oh no. It was like, oh wow, just a genuine hurt I caused to the person. Unintended hurt. That was my own pratibhasika. You see, I stopped halfway. I did not look deeper into the issue, just assumed that if 50% was right, the other 50% has to be also right. Mistake. How do I deal with this? Instantly, I say, next time, I will verify twice. Not once, twice. So every pratibhasika serves as a reminder, if you are able to capture it, to do better next time. This is self-reflection. Okay? So this is not why it's important to read the responses that you get back, because we often want to just send the email and never look at the response, right? But read that response if you have that courage and see how are they reacting to your email. That way you also get feedback of how you did by the time you send that email. Okay, so this is important to catch our own stuff. And we make an instant correction. What will I do better next time? What will be different next time? Having mentioned that pratibhasika is our opinions about the world, it takes a slight turn now. Now it's going to add one word, pratibhasika-jiva. So now the context is going to change, because pratibhasika means your own stuff, right? But when is it really, really your stuff? When it's really your stuff is when you're dreaming. Then it's your world entirely. Therefore, in that case, we call it pratibhasika-jiva. Now, I look at myself as a teacher. In the dream, I could be, a pauper, right? Someone totally different. So the sense of I has completely changed. You relate to this? So in other words, I've created a different version of myself has been created, which is called a pratibhasika-jiva. Right now, this is a vyavaharika-jiva. What the verse is saying is, first of all, what's the difference between a dream and this vyavaharika world?
One is real, one is unreal.
I mean, they're both real from their different standpoints. Your dream is totally real for you while you're dreaming. In fact, you can only say that one's unreal in reference to the vyavaharika-jiva. And that's exactly what the verse wants to point out. The pratibhasika-jiva, when you're dreaming, you take your dream to be absolutely real. Is that true? Right? There's no sense of otherness in the dream. That is it. That is the world. And so for you, the pratibhasika-jiva, the dream becomes satyam. But when you come out of the dream becomes mithya, and the vyavaharika becomes satyam. But what it says here is knowledge, is understanding that both the pratibhasika-jiva and vyavaharika-jiva are unreal, mithya. Therefore, but what kind of a mithya? Different order of mithya. It is mithya because dream person is very different from this person. But both the dream person is dependent and this person is dependent on many variables. So there is mithya, but a different order of mithya.
But then is it a dream? I mean, if you are aware of what's going on.
It doesn't matter whether you're aware or not aware. The point is, there's no reference to your physical body. So you could be hungry, right? You could be very hungry. Your body could be very hungry in bed. And for the dreamer, there's no reference point to who is sleeping in the physical bed. So even though you're aware of the dream, I am dreaming, in that moment, you can't say, oh, and therefore, there is a room and there is a body and there is, all of this stuff. You could say it, but you're not referring directly to what you are saying because there's no correlation between the two. So from your standpoint, in the dream, you have created an entirely different world. And whether you're aware of that world or not, it doesn't matter because there's no connection whatsoever to your kids who are sleeping in your bedroom just over the other side. So what is daydreaming, right? So daydreaming is because we're given this Shakti to imagine. This Shakti gets superimposed over here. So that's why your body can be here and your senses can be open, but your mind is somewhere else. And even if your senses are looking at me, there's no consciousness flowing through them. Because how do we start this course? We said consciousness illumines the mind illumines the sense organs. Sense organs illumine the world. But where are you at? The mind. Therefore, where is the consciousness? It's illumining the mind's pratibhasika. So even if the eyes are open, mind is not sending the light to the sense organs, and therefore the sense organs are not sending the light to the world. That's why you can say, hey, come back, snap out of it. You know this phenomena. So this is what's called transference of consciousness from consciousness to the mind, to the sense organs, to the world. Therefore, imagination is this superimposition on the vyavaharika.
So when we say in corporate world, you do multitasking.
Yeah.
That means you do two things at a time.
Yeah.
Using the same sense organs, but your mind is not at two places at a time. Right? So if I'm doing something and also thinking on something else,
Yeah.
how does that work? For example, I'm working on some data which has to be presented in a meeting.
Yeah.
Parallelly, I'm thinking about what will go on in that meeting.
Right, while your hand is...
Right.
Yeah, this is because, as we said, there's 4 kinds of thinking. First is impulsive, second is mechanical. Mechanical, we have to now tie in this with psychology called the subconscious mind. Just like when you drive a car, you're able to drive a car and think about something else. That's because the driving is in the subconscious mind. So it's doing the driving while your conscious mind is thinking about something else. So same thing in this case. So we also have this subconscious mind, which is kind of the autopilot. Verse 41. So vyavaharika-jiva yaha tat jagat vyavaharikam. Satyam pratyeti mithya iti manyate paramarthika-jiva. This summarizes what we said. So we'll say ignorant and we'll say wise. So for the ignorant person, they take the dream as mithya. Okay, so typical, right? So the dream, I just dreamt. Thank God it didn't happen. It's mithya. And they take the waking as real, satyam. Mithya and waking as satyam. What about the wise person? So they take the dream as mithya, and they take the waking as mithya. Now, what about jiva and the jagat? And then we'll say the jiva and jagat for the ignorant and for the wise. Jiva and jagat for the ignorant is, I hope it says satyam, okay? Absolute reality. What about for the wise? Jiva and jagat is mithya. So the only thing that we're talking about is a cognitive understanding. That's it, right? You get shown the knowledge, you go, oh, okay, so there's a cognitive shift. And despite knowing it's mithya, I can now have I can still participate in the world, but there's what we say, an airbag, right? Things are not so much of a big deal as they were before. Okay, next verse, 42. Paramarthika-jiva tu brahma aikyam, paramarthikam pratyeti vikshate, na anyat vikshate tu anartatmana. Na anyat vikshate. So this means no sense of otherness. It means there's one reality, drk, from which manifests jiva, jagat, and ishvara. So consciousness is manifesting as you, is manifesting as the world, and is manifesting as ishvara. Three names and forms for one reality. The wise person, what is wisdom? It means my notions are keeping with what is. They're no longer keeping with what is not. That means the old stuff. So this means there's a shift. And for that shift, you have to go through the teaching. And when you go through the teaching, then still you have old pratibhasika notions coming into and overlaying themselves over the vyavaharika. So while you're trying to analyze and appreciate the Lord through vyavaharika, what happens? You find yourself walking in this world with a bubble of pratibhasika. You familiar with this? Strong impulse to do so. Therefore, when it comes to pratibhasika, right, we have to look into that first. But what it says here is, even if pratibhasika comes, in the background, you understand this doesn't affect me. This is just the process of the mind. This is what the mind does. It's meant to produce these images. That's the nature of the mind. It's never going to stop, by the way. Can we agree to that now? It's never going to stop until last breath. Every human being goes through one form or the other of dealing with this pratibhasika. It's just there. So now imagine this whole mission of trying to clear it up completely. That's impossible. Therefore, we have to understand this is the nature of the mind, and despite it coming and going, it doesn't really touch me. It's kind of like with ornaments and the gold. There are many, many golden ornaments, and they're all made out of gold, of course. And they all have their certain function and their size and their shape. Some of them look like female, some of them look like male, some of them look like whatever, right? And they're all functional in their utility. So mithya, wherever there's mithya, there is functionality. That's why we don't discard mithya. So all of those ornaments, they go through changes because they get exposed to the heat. Sometimes they melt, sometimes they grow, and sometimes they're very rough. But all of them, what happens? The gold transcends the life of the ornaments. Whatever happens to the ornament, the gold remains through and through every ornament. So when I say transcends the life of the ornament, it doesn't mean that the gold is like out there, somewhere different. Because wherever there is mithya, that's exactly where reality is, satyam is. So in that same way, the gold goes through different conditions, modifications. That's how it is in the world of upadhi. Upadhi is meant to change, right? It's meant to go through joys and griefs and sadness and all this. To try to expect life to be all joy is unrealistic. It's not like this. So therefore, a person everyone has their fair share of suffering. This is a fact. Everyone has their fair share of suffering. One ornament plus one ornament plus one ornament plus one ornament equals gold. So how many times do I have to keep on finding in this world, let me go over there. Maybe the reality is over there. Maybe the reality is over here. How many times do I have to keep on searching until I come to the gold? When I started out, it was gold. When I got fatigued and very, very tired, it's still gold. Yeah, do you have to be constantly aware and conscious of going wrong? You mean in reference to the rules of the game, like dharma?
Yes.
For example, upon waking up, right, there's some nice, you read a Gita or something, just to get you in that state of mind of alignment. So you will still trip up, still make mistakes.
When does it become automatic?
It gets automatic, especially when you get hurt a lot. And in that moment, you instantly look for a solution. Right? In that moment, you look for a way to reframe it or to look at it differently. The next time it happens, then there is a slight change. There's a shift in your pattern of thinking.
So is this the same thing as going from prayas to shreyas?
You know, prayas to shreyas, yes, it is, because, see, everyone gets born 50% papam, 50% punyam, more or less. So, and instant gratification is what really drives most of our world, instant gratification. That's called preyaha. So if you want to move into conscious, deliberate mindfulness, that's why mindfulness is so popular. All mindfulness really is just shreyaha, right? Being conscious and alert to what am I saying, how fast am I saying it, and to whom am I saying it, and what is my intention behind saying it. That's shreyaha. And that is hard, isn't it? It requires constant effort. And what does the brain want to do? Path of least resistance. Yeah, exactly. Just do it how I've always been doing it. Because then you move on with life. After all, there's no one here watching me. But actually, it ends up adding up, and it costs you happiness in the long run. Because it ends up being in an unconscious, running the show without even knowing it. Interrupting that pattern when it occurs. It will go through sorrow. Now, hopefully, with that sorrow comes a learning, right? You're taking that situation and asking questions. What went wrong? This is how the Air Force pilots do it. Whenever the Air Force pilots land down on the ground, they ask, I think it's 3 questions. What did I do right? What did I do wrong? And what can I do better next time? Right? These,
work in progress.
yeah, they literally are required to pull out a piece of paper and write this protocol out. And this improves the individual through the course of time. Because while they're doing their missions, they could have, maybe gone through the wrong formation or, fired prematurely or something. And where did it do correct? So this is self-reflection. For example, after this class, I'll ask myself, what did I do right? What did I do? Did I find any inconveniences? Like, what did I do wrong? And what will I do better next time? And so you see this individual, and every single time you see them actually growing more and more and more and more. And it's really beautiful to see. I've seen even Nima, who I've been listening for a couple of years. She's changed so much because she has this reflection process in the background. Right? While teaching, she's also reflecting on her own life. While I'm teaching, I'm also reflecting on my own life. That's why we ask for feedback, as I will ask you. Right? Because I want to improve. You want to improve. For whose sake? For your sake, exactly. Therefore, it's not now you should improve, but you understand that if you don't get feedback, the cost is yours. There's a cost, and I can't get away with that cost. See, when we chant Purnamadav, Purnamidam, this is exactly what the example is. When you say Purnam Adaha, that means that is the whole. So as I said, before creation, right, Sat Eva, right, Agra Asit, Ekam Eva Ditiyam. Before all of this, there was one undifferentiated existence. So that is Purnam Adaha, that is full, that is gold. One undifferentiated molten gold. Purnam idam. Owing to this Maya Upadi, it's able to sort of take this molten gold and make structures out of it. Right? Make a golden world. Therefore, Purnamidam, this world is nothing but gold? Because all there is gold. If I take one of these structures out of this golden world and I melt it, then purnat purnamudachyate. From that gold, if I melt that gold, I have nothing but the same gold from which I took originally to make this gold, the structure. Therefore, that is the gold. What is that? Satinchit is the gold. This is the gold. What is this? The names and forms of the gold. You melt all of the name and forms together, and you have the same undifferentiated gold from whence this gold came from. Not that it came from, but it is already gold. It doesn't need to come from anywhere. So in that same way, when this universe goes through a macrocosmic dissolution after some time, then all of these forms, they go back into the same reality from whence they came from. And because when the manifestation happens out of this one full reality, then whatever is here is the very same reality from which these forms came from. So this is full, this is full, this is full, everything is full, that is full. Ishvara is full. There's nothing but fullness here, obtaining as different names and forms thanks to our lovely Maya Upadhi. And because it's there, that's why we have these names and forms. Were it not to be there, we would not be going through this class at all. So it's actually a kind of a good thing, right? Yeah, let me go through this thing, and then you can, be glad that you have figured it out after all this time. So there is a celebration. So the wise person, na anyat vikshate, cognizes no otherness. Explain this. What exactly does no otherness means? And there are three kinds of divisions in this world, right? And then we will see through these divisions, there is no sense of, the wise person doesn't see them as divisions. That's why I put three divisions here. The way to remember is Sajatiya starts with S, same group. Vijatiya starts with V, varied group or different group. And Saswagata parts within a whole. Okay. So if you look at Sajatiya Bheda, Bheda means difference. Okay? So, for example, suppose you have differences within the same kind. So suppose you take a mango tree, right? And you have a mango tree. Now, how many trees are there? How many mango trees are there? There is Kent mangoes, and there is, for example, honey gold mangoes. So even within the same category of the mango trees, of the same group, there are differences in that group, okay? So in that similar way, what the world does is they say, oh, we have Asian man awareness. We have black man awareness. You see this? So they took a human being and they divided it within black people, Asian people, Indian people, Caucasian people, and within those species, that same group of people, there is right, different awarenesses. Make sense? So for example, we say, this is only for Indians. It is not for white people. Or, this is only for, right, black people have a different kind of devolved consciousness, suppose. So this is the era of one who is, right, not understanding that awareness is actually not something that you can have multiples of. So if I say there's Asian and Caucasian and whatever Indian awareness, that means how many Drgs are there? Or for example, in this case, 3 Drgs. But if we analyze this, this is not the case. Because from my standpoint, I am the Drg, you all are the Drsya, seen. From Julie's standpoint, she is the Drg, and the rest of us are seen. From your standpoint, you're the seer, I'm the seen. From Otto's standpoint, all three of us are the seen, Otto is the seer. From a So Kyung standpoint, she's the seer, all four of us are the seen. So how many scenes are there? Many. How many seers are there? One. A black man's standpoint, seer, all of us are seen. Doesn't really matter. Therefore, this one, Sajatiya Bheda, we have understood there is no differences in Sajatiya Bheda. Now, what about Vijatiya Bheda? This means, for example, cow awareness is different from human awareness because they're two different groups. Human species is one group, cows or animals or whatever, insects is another group. So again, this means that, right, cow is one Brahman, cow Brahman, and human species are another Brahman. But this again we cancel out. How? Because Brahman obtains in everything as the isness of that thing. Cow is, human being is. Therefore, we have cancelled out Vijatiya Bheda. Make sense? Now, what about Swagata Bheda? This is whereby you have, think of like Swadharma, your own. So make it like body. Take a body. So a body is made up of parts. And what we often, for example, your leg is different from your eye is different from the nose, etc. So this is where the scientists make an error. Because what they say is, consciousness is specifically in the brain. So the brain is one part of the whole. But not only is it in the brain, it is in a particular part of the brain, the pineal gland. So this we cancel out also, because awareness is not in any one part, but rather all parts, as we saw, pramata, prameya, the object, awareness is the content of every form. Awareness is the content of your physical brain. How do we do this? We saw that if you break down your physical brain, it's nothing but smaller atoms, molecules, etc. At every level, there's intelligence, and intelligence has no reality apart from existence and awareness. Therefore, we also cancel out Swagata Bheda. So this means consciousness, you cannot differentiate it in any one within the same group. You can't say that your consciousness, right, the Asian man consciousness is more evolved than African man consciousness. Cancelled out. We can't say that a ant consciousness is less evolved than human consciousness, because consciousness obtains in everyone as the isness of that thing. Remember, when I say consciousness, it's not only consciousness but also the existence. That's why we say existence awareness. Ant exists, human being exists. And also, we cannot say that consciousness is isolated to any one particular section, because every section is made out of consciousness. And we saw the analysis of this. The whole thing is nothing but awareness. So we come to see that consciousness is not exclusive to anybody. The silliest person in the world enjoys the same consciousness as the saint, except their mind doesn't know about the reality. That's the only difference, the mind. And finally, the last verse wants to talk about in which order does ignorance go. So verse 46. The reason I skipped these other verses is I've included everything in the analysis. Pratibhasika-jiva laye syuhu vyavaharike tat laye satchit anandaha paryavasyanti sakshini. So what is this process to moksha? First of all, subjectivity needs to go. And they have a very nice metaphor here. They say that take the ocean and the wave. Now the wave is the vyavaharika-jiva. And the foam on top of the wave is pratibhasika. So what does the person have to do? Because they're carrying all of this foam like a, rabies, right? Right? Leaking out. They have to pop those bubbles one by one, until I can see the fullness of my wave. Until then, I was covered with all of this foam. I couldn't even see myself as a person. I saw what? Imaginations of myself. All of these complexes and personality complexes and inferiority complexes and superiority complexes, all of this is pratibhasika foam on top of the wave. Having popped these foam bubbles equated to pratibhasika, now that I can see the wave and the ocean, of course, I can begin my inquiry into the world, into the ocean, into the jagat. And what is this jagat? We say it is a manifestation of all knowledge, all power, which intelligently puts together everything, making it what it is, participating in laws and orders, in the past, present, and future. And the understanding of this intelligence, this very intelligence that is doing all of this right now, the reality of it is Sat and Chit. And what is the relationship between this intelligence and Sat and Chit? Satya Mithya relationship. Without the Sat, this intelligence has no existence. Existence is completely free of this intelligence. And the relationship is like between the salt in the ocean. The ocean is one total thing. And in it, there is this salt. And the salt you cannot see, but it's everywhere throughout the ocean. And paryavasyanti sakshini, so having concluded that the reality is the witness is the reality, once my buddhi, my intellect is so fine-tuned, it can effortlessly and unceasingly know what is the invariable presence, no matter what happens in life. And it can discern that easily, effortlessly, all the time from that which is changing. It's effortless. It is more effortless than 1 + 1. Because as I said, 1 + 1, you have to think about it. But if I ask you, do you exist, you know this effortlessly. Therefore, the understanding for a wise person is, right now, that which is invariable is more clear than that which is variable. They're actually both clear, but it is so clear that it's effortless. Understanding owing to your constant inquiry, there's constantly something that is unmoving, unchanging. Even when this body gets up like this and sits down like that, there is still an invariable presence that is consciousness. That is the light that's lighting up this individual, which is giving light to the mind, right? Consciousness giving light to the mind. They give their light to the senses, and the senses give light to the world. Okay? And therefore, from then on, never again do you fall into any doubt. And if there is a doubt, there is still another thought obtaining in consciousness. And that consciousness, I am. Always free of doubts or knowledge or ignorance, free of everything. And this concludes our Drg Drsya Viveka of 46 verses. Sure, so it depends on the punya papam for the jiva. If the jiva has done, for example, in the Vedas, we have rituals and ways of conduct by which you live and do your rituals and prayers, and you can live a very clean life and devoted life. And these rituals are intended to give you a higher loka, to the jiva. Otherwise, if the person just lives a relatively dharmic life, then what happens is when the physical body is dropped, right, the mind still continues. It just remains. Now, there's two theories in Upanishads. One of them is that the subtle body resolves into, it just disappears, right, into the 5 elements. So what remains is the causal body. The second is that the subtle body doesn't need to dissolve at all. It just sort of remains there, right, waiting for a new body to come. Now, the thing is, when there is a death for the jiva, then that jiva can get reborn like that very quickly. But for us, it is 1,000 years. because the time is very different after the jiva dies compared to now. Or the jiva can, take a rest for 1,000 years, but for us it's like 1 second. So this is also possible. Otherwise, what continues for sure is the causal body, which carries those impressions called sanchita, that is going to sculpt that new individual when the body gets built. And not only their body, but they also say it's going to choose the parents, it's going to choose the general environment, it's going to choose your proclivities and your inclinations. So that's why we say it's going to set up a general trajectory of how you're going to be oriented the moment you're born, right? And this trajectory, as we said yesterday, can be broken, can be intercepted, but it's going to be a strong pull, right, to make you be a particular person. In fact, you can't do anything about the way that you are if you haven't thought about it, right? You are the way that you are. No matter how many times or what you do or how many sessions of therapy you go to, you still walk out as the exact same person, because that's called your prarabdha karma. You can't cheat prarabdha karma. Prarabdha karma sculpts you to be this particular person. If you're a fast talker, you will speak fast. If you're a slow talker, you will speak slow. Just the way that you are, that is prarabdha karma. That's why we say the kind of fragrance that comes out of that sanchita, that is going to sculpt you for the rest of your life. So yes, it is your destiny. It is your destiny, but don't forget free will. Free will has the chance to intercept and make some changes if you find yourself some qualities that are undesirable, right? So yes, we can get ourselves out of qualities that are not so desirable. It's hard work, but it's possible. Yeah. And that hard work is also, now going to add another opinion about yourself. Oh, well, I'm not capable, I'm too old, I'm too slow. And now this becomes your pratibhasika. And so again, what do we have to do? Like those foam on the wave, we have to pop that first, which is why personal development or therapy or self-help has a place in this world. This is why karma yoga or the entire yoga shastra, the Bhagavad Gita, has a place in the world, because it is meant to pop the bubbles. That's the whole Gita, is really just popping the bubbles. So there's 14 lokas, 7 down and 7 up. So we're in the middle, the earth. This is the loka where you're given free will, strong enough and make a difference in your life. All of the other lokas, they're only exhausting punyam. So you go up there, except Brahmaloka, the highest. It's said that in Brahmaloka you're capable of gaining this knowledge, but all of the other lokas, like Swarga Loka, the heaven, it's basically just really beautiful music. It's kind of like being on drugs. Like really beautiful, everything's sublime, you're like floating, like wow, everything's so beautiful. Now, if you're in that kind of state, are you thinking about existential matters? No, you're just really having a great time. The music is out of this world. The food is to die for. It's really beautiful. But the person, yeah, it sounds really attractive, right? But then if you look at the whole aspect, you see that ultimately, just like if I fill up the fuel of the rocket of 1,000 liters, that 1,000 liters is going to get me up to a certain height, but it's going to eventually fall down. Knowing this, no thank you. It's going to be great, definitely, no doubt. But unfortunately, well, actually, you're still sort of, witness Indra is on a hierarchy, number one, and there's all of these disciples, and you're like far away. And even if you go to Vrindavan, right, and you sport with Krishna, now, how many are people, now imagine Krishna, right, in his loka, and so many disciples around him, because everyone wants to be close to Krishna. And you get born in this loka, and you're like, oh, Krishna's over there, right? And now you have to like plow through all of these people, get out of, I just want to, prostrate to the feet of Krishna. And Krishna says, oh, okay, welcome, hello, okay, goodbye. How many seconds did you get Krishna's attention for? Maybe 5 seconds. He blesses you, and he says, go back into your heavenly home and stay there for 2 million years and dance. And like, oh, geez, that's all I was really looking for, right? Just to have 5 seconds to Krishna, because he's busy. Everyone wants to, there's new jivas constantly who want to see Krishna. Yeah. So you can, it's nice, but, loka has a time-space a limitation to it. And when the whole universe resolves, then all of the jivas resolve back into what we call a pralayam, dissolution, into a long sleep. And then they wake up again as a little worm, as an insect, and eventually you have to wait 4 billion years to come back as a functional human being to ask the question, who am I? So lokas are there, but it's not, for everyone. Purnamadav, Purnamidam, Purnat, Purnamudachyate, Purnasya, Purnamadaya, Purnameva avashishyate. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti.